Hey everybody, today we're going to go through how to make our journals for the brand new school year. And to do this, I've got some pre-cut paper for you. This stuff's a little bit heavier duty, and this is going to become the cover, so we don't have to worry too much about this right now. We'll need a pair of scissors. We'll need a binder clip, just in case we don't get everything finished and bound today. We're going to use this to keep everything together. And we'll also need one of these small sticky notes with our name on it, and 4 pages of either white or colored 8.5 by 11 paper. The stuff that I'm using here is just basic printer paper. And once I get rolling in a minute, I'm going to switch to blue paper just because the blue actually shows the creases that we're going to need to make a little bit better on camera than the white stuff here. This little guy has a rib, and it's actually for use with clay, but we're going to use it to help make really nice folds today. So if you were doing this project at home and you didn't have a rib like this, you could actually use the side of a ruler, or even if your folks were okay with it, the rounded edge of some scissors right here to press and make a nice straight edge. So here we go. Our first step with our 8.5 by 11 paper is going to be to fold it in half. And it doesn't matter which way you fold it in half. You can go long ways like this, hot dog style to start, or you could have also started by folding it down the middle. I just happen to start long ways. If it's easier for you to think about right now, go ahead and make your fold just like mine so your paper is folded like a hot dog. Now to make sure that it's easy to bind later, watch what I do with this rib. I'm going to press it firmly right up my fold so I have something that's nice and well folded. Now keep it folded and fold it in half one more time. Watch this. The top comes down to the bottom. For those of us who have a hard time folding, watch how I do this. Top to the bottom. I'm going to line up this corner and this corner. And once my corners are lined up nice and neat, I'm going to put my fingers together down here and then slide up to get that crease started at the top. And then I'm going to use my rib again. I'm going to press firmly right across the top of that crease. Now, you should have something that's kind of a rectangle like this. We're going to fold this in half one more time, again top to the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up these two corners. Once those corners are lined up, I'm going to push my fingers together and then slide up to the top. Start that crease and then use my rib to apply gentle pressure for a nice neat crease. Now check it out. We're going to unfold it, and you'll know that you've done it correctly if when you unfold it you've got 8 little rectangles formed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now here's where things can start to get tricky. We're going to take our whole piece of paper and we're going to fold it in half just like this. Let me show you that part again. We're going to take our whole piece of paper and I'm going to take the top so it meets the bottom, just like that, and turn it. So now I've got a folded side right here where my finger is, and this side over here opens just like a book. This is where your scissors are going to come in handy because we're actually going to use scissors to just cut from this edge and stop at the middle. We're going to cut right along that fold. So watch how I do this. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to turn my paper over. Now my fold is on this side. And I'm going to cut in, taking my time, watching and where my fingers are so they're not in the way of my scissors. And I'm going to cut nice and slow so I have a nice, neat line. Once I get to the center, I'm going to stop. Now sometimes kids like to stop before they actually get into the middle. You want to cut right up to where all 4 of these lines meet. Once you've got a cut that looks just like that, open your project up. You should have a cut right in the middle. That's the one we just made. Now stick with me for a second and watch what happens next. I have to fold it back so it's a hot dog style fold, just like this. I'll show you again. Left folds over the right, and so when I push it together, I've got a diamond in there. From here, watch what I do with these two edges. I'm going to push them together just like this. I'll show you that part one more time. I've got that empty diamond inside, and I'm going to push my edges together, and your book should naturally start to close just like it did there. Once you've got this, crease it one more time. This is a big step to remember. It's not going to lay quite flat yet, so use that rib to smooth out your folds. Now, because we're folding a little bit heavier duty paper, things probably aren't going to meet perfectly. You might have some stuff hanging off the side just like that. That's okay. So what you should be looking at right now is something that kind of starts to resemble a book. Now, a lot of you are probably going, well, hey, wait a minute. I've got this folded side right here. Is that supposed to be like that? And the answer is yes. You should have something that opens up, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. I've got a fold here, and an end result should be a rectangle, just like that. So now I'm going to repeat that on my other 3 pieces of paper. All right, here I am on my second sheet of paper, and I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing that I did on that first piece with the folds. So I'm going to speed this clip up a little bit. I can cut from this fold in and stop at the center. So this is the piece that opens, and this is the edge that I'm going to cut from. So make sure you keep your paper folded still, and carefully use your scissors to cut from the outside in. There's that diamond in the middle again, and take both ends right where my fingers are and push together. The end of today is having at least all 4 of your pages folded. That's where the sticky note comes in, and that's also where the binder clip comes in. So if we run out of time today, make sure your sticky note goes on the front, binder clip goes on top. Fold the sides down just like that. Cover is made on heavier drawing paper. That way marker doesn't bleed through quite as easy, and all we're going to do is just fold it in half. We don't want to fold it lengthwise like that. We want to fold it just like this, kind of like a book, so it's about the same size as the rest of our pieces. What's going to end up happening is we're going to make sure and double check and then triple check that all our pages face the same direction, because once we start the binding process on our book, it's going to become hard to change any mistakes. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got a fold on all the left-hand sides. Here's what I mean. This is my fold here, and all my pages open over here, just like a book. I'm going to double check that on all my pages. Perfect. So this is the cover, and it's going to fit around our book, just like this. And what's going to happen is I'm going to hole punch out here for you so that we can start the binding with yarn. Now before I do that, your job, and it might be easier if you keep your project in a binder clip for now, your job is going to be to use markers, pencils, or even crayons, if you'd like to decorate your cover. I'm not going to tell you too much of what you need on your cover other than to say you need to fill it up completely front and back with color. Put your name on it and your class. So for example, if you're in 5th grade Mrs. Hume's class, you'd write your name somewhere on your front cover and then the number 5 and the letter H for 5th grade Hume H. Here's my front cover. The back cover is going to differ by grade level, so I'll let 4th, 5th, and 6th grades know what they can expect for a design on the back. I've also chosen to decorate the inside cover. Now keep in mind that my binding and my pages are going to be right here in the middle. So you might not want to spend too much time decorating this small portion right here where my pencil is, but you can definitely add designs out here. What we're going to end up doing though is poking 2 or 3 holes down the side and then using some yarn to bind these together. So I'm going to show you that. Here's how the binding is going to work. I'll hole punch it for you if you need help. Otherwise, we've got a couple different hole punches that are going to be floating around the classroom for those of you who want to try it yourself. Now, hole punching this much paper could be kind of difficult for some of us, so if it's a little tough for you, that's okay. Put your paper in and squeeze hard. Most of our hole punches don't have the catch on the bottom. So if your holes fly out like that, that's okay. Just make sure that they get in the trash can by the end of the class period. You want 2 holes. Now you don't want them super far in, like this, but you also don't want them punched right on the edge. The hole punch works through this little hole right here, and that little piece of metal comes down and pushes the paper out. So if you're wondering where in the world your hole is going to be, you can turn it kind of on its side like this, and you can look right up here and see where that hole is going to be pushed through the paper. Now because there's so many folds and so many pieces, we can't really do them all at the same time. So what we're going to do after we punch that first set is we're going to use that one as kind of a template. And that's going to help us figure out where we're going to have to punch the rest of our holes so everything lines up nice and neatly. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to set it over the top, and then I'm going to use a pencil, and I don't need to make a dark line, but I'm just going to use that pencil to trace a small circle inside where that hole was. It's really important that as you do that, you don't move your paper around a lot, because we want these holes to be in the same spot on all 4 pieces. So once you've got those holes traced out, just like this, hole punch them. Every once in a while, some people get a little bit anxious to throw these away, and they might want to think that they're kind of confetti. Please make sure all your dots end up in the trash and you're taking your time to collect them, because we don't want your neighbor's project covered in your paper dots. And all I'm going to do now is just repeat on my last pieces of paper, tracing these holes through. Alright, once you've got all your holes punched, just like these guys, our last step is actually going to be to figure out where on our cover we need to put those holes as well. Since your cover is slightly larger than your pages, line it up on the outside just like this, and you want just enough space around the edge on the top, the side, and the bottom, so it kind of looks similar to mine right here. And once you've got that, you're going to do the same thing. Now I asked you guys to design your cover before we punched out the holes. That makes it a little bit easier as you're coloring, so you don't have open space of paper right there to grab markers or pencils. Once you've got that space traced out, same thing that you've been doing, punch your holes and make sure your scraps get put in the trash can. Now if you have a design that you punch through, kind of like the W in wind, just like mine, that's okay. Now comes the tricky part, because we're going to have to line all of these holes up together, which, if you took your time and traced everything out, they should end up pretty consistently punched in the same spot. Then we're going to have to stick them inside our cover and start the binding process. Once I'm ready to bind, I've got one piece of yarn that I'm going to use to put through the holes. I've got my cover, my pieces with the holes lined up still, and I've got this small white square paper just in case I need help threading the yarn through those holes. Now watch how this works. This is a spot where some kids can find it a little bit difficult, maybe even a little bit tricky, because we got to line these up, and because these papers are so thick in there, our lines might not line up perfectly the first time we try it. That's okay. If you need to move your lines and your holes around in there until they match up, feel free to do so. There we go. Some kids are going to find it a little bit easier to keep those holes where they need to be by using a small pipe cleaner scrap and pushing it through just so those pages no longer move around and spread themselves out. Now here's where my yarn comes in. And because I've got a small hole there, I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit easier to thread that loose piece of yarn through. Put your yarn inside your little helper piece of paper and fold it over, and then fold it over again. That's just going to start to give us a nice hard point that'll be easier to push through paper than our regular yarn. Alright, I got my paper and my yarn pushed through that hole just far enough that I can pull it through the rest of the way with my hands, and I'm going to take that extra piece of paper off, and I've got my yarn. Now this yarn has to last me for one more hole, so once I pull it through there, I'm going to thread it back through just enough so I can tie a knot. Tie a regular knot just like you would if you had a knot in your shoes. And if you're concerned about it coming undone, give it one extra tie just to make sure everything stays in place. Now with your scissors, carefully cut off that extra tail here and cut off the large chunk of extra yarn over here. Make sure you save the large piece because that's going to go through this side of the binding now.